Are we ready?
We are ready.
Okay. Um, okay, so let me go to Bible study channel. Okay. And then let me share my screen and I will allow this screen, I think is the one. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody can see the picture and everything.
Back to the screen sharing
I'm
one.
sorry?
I said just wait 1 second. I'm trying to remember how to get back to that menu again. Oh, there it is. All right, I'm good now.
Okay. So, welcome. Do I need to get a timer? Do you want me to have a timer or anything?
Um,
I don't.
I can remind you when it gets to like 10 or 15. Would you like me to do that, or do you want to just kind of see when you're starting and keep track yourself? Because I can give you reminders if you
Um,
prefer.
I don't have a watch on me, and my phone's not here. So if you wouldn't mind helping,
Okay.
I'll let's go for 10 minutes, and then if it's anything extra, that'll be like the 15. That'll be like the max, I guess, if that's what you want to do. But so you can say it's been 10 minutes, and I can be like, okay, well, let me wrap it up or something like that.
Okay, sure. I'll let you know when it's been 10 minutes, and if you push it all the way to 15, then I will let you know when it gets to there as well.
Okay, sounds good. Are you guys ready?
Ready.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right, Greg, are you there?
I
Sorry.
am here and I am ready.
Okay, good.
Are
I
you
like
even
hearing
citing
from.
your sources, dude?
Yeah, I've been citing everything, bro. I took this so seriously. I was like, yo, I'm gonna cite everything so everyone can find. That's why I said I'll send this to you if you ever want to like copy any of the URLs or anything like that. So I titled this "From the Sermons to the Sea." The name came to me. Honestly, you can be a little bit like this guy, kind of like Nani, but like I like this picture because it's like real people and like I like how it might have looked like back in the day when Jesus was like lecturing and teaching to all the people. So I wanted to start with this image that we are here like this group of people with Jesus studying the Bible and studying Jesus's words so that we may have good in our hearts and good in the teachings we give to others, which is covered in this presentation. So I'm using the Sermon on the Mount as a beginning. Honestly, I wanted to start in Matthew because I really liked how he does things, or like how he kind of goes through Jesus' story, almost like the Quick Notes version. But I felt like the parts that he captured are really impactful as well. So I use the Sermon on the Mount, and pretty much we're talking about that, but we go from there and we stay in chapter 5, which is kind of crazy. So to remind everyone what the Sermon on the Mount is, this is when Jesus actually gives the Our Father prayer to all the people that are there with him. And this section right here got a little messed up. Technically, this section right here is one. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And then this is another section, and they all go down. And so these are called the Beatitudes. Everything, by the way, from here, unless specifically stated otherwise, is from Matthew because I was kind of running out of time. So that's why I have the verses listed, but everything is from Matthew. So these are the Beatitudes, and they're a little confusing, but I'll read through them, not too slowly or anything, but here we go. So, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. And meek is weak or, fragile. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So there's almost like a trend in these Beatitudes, which is you do this, this will be shown. Or you are this will be shown. You are this will be shown. You are this will be shown. In a way, there are these kind of parallels that if you're small, if you're merciful, if you which back in the day, by the way, being merciful is almost being called stupid. And nowadays, almost, right, being called merciful is stupid in a sense. Like, oh my gosh, like, why did you show mercy on that guy when you could have literally taken $5 extra or taken the full amount that they were owed? Like, why would you do that to somebody when you could have made more money? In fact, we had a guest lecturer today that was saying the same thing. He's like, "Oh my gosh, you have to like charge everybody exactly the prices that they're worth, or else you're underselling yourself." And so there's, blessed are those who hunger and thirst, right? So I don't want to talk too much about this because I feel like my real lesson is kind of later on in the presentation, but I wanted to start here because in the Beatitudes, there's a lot of you are this, and you will be given this, or you'll be shown this, or you will be this, comforted. You will see God. You'll be called children of God. And I like the parallel that you are one way, and almost through God, you will be shown this by, I believe, other people. And you, the people who are here listening to this, are those other people. So, for example, blessed are those who mourn, for their friends will be their comfort. For God shall comfort them outside of themselves, right? When you're sad, you don't ever want to hear, oh, it'll be okay. But God will always be there for you. And I love the idea that in these symbols, and we'll pause on that one and move on, because I like that when you are sad, when you are grieving, remind yourself, this is being done for the glory of God. And somewhere along this story of suffering, you will have comfort. And that if you are the friend of those who are suffering, you can be that comfort. Moving on. So we keep reading past the Beatitudes. We don't stop there and we're like, okay, like that's done. This is actually the Sermon on the Mount as a picture. I can't remember who painted it, but you can look at the wikipedia.org where I got that from. And so we begin listening to, after Jesus says this whole heavy lecture, he continues on and says, okay, guys, so if we have all these things that if you're this way, you'll be getting this, but sometimes you can't help but be this way. Sometimes you can't be merciful. And then so they're saying, but what should we be like, Jesus? So Jesus says, well, first, be like the salt of the earth, right? I think of Bryan when I think of this, because I feel like, and you know, all of our friends here, but Bryan really sprung out to me here, because I feel like there's somebody who's so distinctly them that you can't help but be like, oh, that's Bryan, you know, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, if I listen to that voice, it's like, yeah, just another one, you know, we're going to play what I think of Mike, you know, that's what I get from this. If salt loses its saltiness, if I talk to Bryan, he's like, oh, like, what's up, dude? You know, like, how can I make it Bryan again? You know, like, there's nothing I can do for Bryan because he has something that is innately his. If Mike is doing something and sharing something and he stops, what can I do to make him salty again? What can I play another league game? But like, what can I do to make them themselves, right? That's something I find so powerful. And we keep going. You are the light of the world. So I'm comforting Mike and Bryan and Greg here, who's got Caroline with him, and maybe she's comforting him at this moment. Who knows? And they're like, but I'm not good for anything. You know, you keep calling me unique and that I'm salty in this world, but what's it good for? And then I continue, as Jesus says, you are the light of the world, Bryan, Greg, Mike, because a town built on a hill should not be hidden. It cannot be hidden, right? I do not turn on this light that is Bryan and I put it under a bowl. I hide it away. I make it so he's my only friend and I never let anybody else meet him. I shoo them away. I'm like, Bryan's my only friend. You know, it's like I share this light with others so that he may inspire them in the same way he inspired me. And I feel like if there's ever a time where you think, well, am I doing this right? This being a human thing? Ask yourself, are you feeling the need to hide your light, the things that you do? Because maybe you are. In the same way, let your light, the things that you do, shine for others so that they may see the good deeds. And by you doing the good deeds, you glorify your Father. For they ask, well, why did you show mercy to me? And in my time, I always say, because there's someone I adore that showed mercy to others first, and I follow his lead. So, what is it good to do for and to others? Like, what is good? Right? And so this is a whole transition right here. So we talked about saltiness, we talked about being a light, letting it shine, but what am I letting shine? Right? So you have heard, as Jesus says, that it's told, do not murder, do not, lie, do not cherish others that, are married, right? Do not commit adultery. But Jesus breaks it down even further. So let's go ahead and say, right, you shall not murder. Let's pick that one. It's the easiest almost because it's such a violent act to murder. And anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with a brother or sister and calls them a fool or an idiot, they are just as answerable. And I leave that. I drop the mic there because there are so many times where I'm playing a game with you guys and you can call, oh, that guy's an idiot, or they're so stupid. Oh, I can't believe them. I hate them, right? This is as answerable in court to murder. And I like this because it gives a moment of reflection and being like, am I really doing something that bad by calling someone an idiot? To Jesus, you are, but he doesn't stop there. Let it go, Jesus tells Elsa. I kind of like that. I like the picture of him holding his hands up. He's like, come on, let it go. Right? So, if you're angry with someone in your family, I'm sorry. Okay, I didn't know if somebody was saying something. Okay. I like that in this, like, so we have, right? So we're shining a light. We're learning what it is to do good. And we're learning that if you do something, like if you slight another by calling them a fool, an idiot, you condemn them in that way, you're committing murder answerable in court. You're committing a crime and likened to murder answerable in court. And here you have the idea of, well, what if I just hold it in? You know, what if I just call Mike an idiot and you know what? I just never fix it. I'm just going to go to God and I'm going to pray to him and tell him I'm sorry. Jesus says, don't. Stop right there. Because God would prefer you to go in front of your brother and sister and let them pity you first, to reconcile yourself to them, to apologize to them before you come to him. Because to God, that is the way that he would like you to handle anger and suffering. You make it up to your brother and sister first and not feel that you can bypass them and go to God. That the way to God is through those you have harmed. That you must go and say sorry to them first and then speak to God. Because, again, God is as harmed or as saddened by the brother and sister being angry and saddened by you, then he is happy that you're leaving him a gift. So then we talk about, well, what if it's somebody I don't even know? Okay, like it doesn't have to be a brother and sister. Yeah, I'll apologize to them. But what if it's just some random person online? Jesus says, don't let it hang. Go talk to them while they're on their way to go get you in trouble. Don't just say, you know what, they're small town. Okay, they're just gonna get some petty person to hate me. No, go with them. Right? There's actually another saying in here that I will not quote here, but I will share. Right, where it says, you know, walk a mile. Go 10 minutes. Okay, don't worry. We're kind of almost there. You know, and so he's saying, you know, don't let it fester. Don't let it hurt, and don't let them take you to the judge because you will pay every little penny. Okay. So, what's love got to do with it? Right? So now we're talking about, okay, fine. I'll say sorry to my brother and sister. I will share my light. I will be salty. I will be true to who I am. But what else? What about in love? It's like you shall not commit adultery. But don't look at someone lustfully, right? Don't cause any part of you. Don't just think to yourself, well, I can look at them and get away with it. It doesn't really matter, right? We've read all this before. So after hearing the time, I'm gonna pick it up. So, right? But what if I divorce my wife? You know, what if I, you know, marry and I'm only paying attention to her, but she's not giving me what I want? Well, don't divorce her, because that's not the reason you get married. So make a big deal out of marriage, for it is something that is forever. Okay. Oath, lies, and love. And this is. Let me check. Yep. This is the second to last slide. So here we go. So do not break your oath, right? So we're talking about, okay, fine. I know, do not break your marriage, and looking at someone lustfully is the same as breaking your marriage. So make a big deal out of being married, and example, being single. Do not lust for others, and because you don't know who's who, right? Go and be pure in that what you do. And then so, okay, well, what if I promise someone something? What if I tell them an oath that I will do this thing, I will give you the world? Well, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is his footstool, right? Simply say yes or no. I can or I can't. And if you have a need to explain yourself further, that's where you do it. But you do not promise things that you cannot have, for you shall not turn a hair on your head gray should you wish it. And then we go on to eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Well, what if somebody hurts me? Does that make it okay for me to hurt them back? This happens in league all the time, right? No, it doesn't, right? If someone slaps you, let them slap the other cheek too. And if somebody asks for something, if they're trying to take them something, oh, actually, by the way, there is the quote right there. If they ask you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. If they ask you to give something to you, do not turn away from them, right? Talk to them. Give it to the one who asked you. Hey, can I have $5? You're like, okay, you know what? I will give it to you. Or, as we kind of talked about, maybe give them food. Give them things that you believe that they need, right? Do not turn away from them. And you have heard what is said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for them who persecute you. For all of you are children of heaven, right? He causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain down on the righteous and the unrighteous. So in this, whole section. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? You do not seek a reward ever here. You are seeking to be the one that you love, God, and like him, love all those that you can and that you should, all of humanity. And to sum it up, go and do good to others. Therefore, as we have the opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. And I end with this because I think this was on a cup from Cookout. So I liked that because, it is letting their light shine, right? They're serving us in this industry, and to all people, we should do good. And as highlighted in this section, it is not enough to not murder. It is not enough to not hate others. There has to be, in all things you do, a question of, is this coming from a good place? And if not, I probably shouldn't call them an idiot. I probably shouldn't hate them. And if I feel the need to do something, I should do it and do good. The end.
Round of applause. I don't know if you can hear my clapping.
That was probably over 15 minutes, but
Actually, it was 14 minutes and 8, or probably right about 14 minutes. So
perfect.
pretty much a perfect time there. Thank you. And I was hoping that you would just get to say everything you wanted, and then we could do some questions if anyone has one. So are you okay with that, Anthony?
Yes, go for it.
Does anyone have a question?
My question was, would you say that the final slide, go and do good to others, was kind of the theme of your presentation today?
Yes. So I feel like really what I wanted to do with this presentation was highlight, and I'm going to put it back in slideshow just to kind of like blow through them a little bit here. Like I felt like what I wanted to do is
kind of talk about it.
I don't can you say that again? I couldn't hear you. Sorry.
Yeah, I said you should just stay in the slideshow as we kind of talk about it for a minute.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I actually didn't know we were doing a question slide, or else I would have stayed in here. But I was literally thinking to myself, it would be cool if I opened up for questions, and then Mike said that, so I was like, oh, cool. So the theme of what I wanted to get, so when Mike was like, we can do a presentation. Honestly, what inspired me the most was, and this was what I was going to do originally, was talk about the Good Samaritan, because I felt like it's such a strong story after hearing about it again and learning that like Samaritan wasn't considered a good culture. Like, and I say this like with respect, like I feel like, and this is from how I'm interpreting it, that being called a Samaritan is almost like being called like a Nazi. Like it wasn't a good culture to come from. And so that Jesus would name one of his parables, or that we would name it from what he said, the Good Samaritan, is throwing on its head what it means to be called good or bad. So Jesus is saying, who was the one who took pity on this man who was by the road? Was it the priest who came by and prayed for him? Was it the rich guy who turned down and maybe cried a tear and kept going? No, the lawyer who asked the question to Jesus recognizes it was the one who showed him mercy, the one who went up to him and picked him up and brought him to an inn, who tended to his wounds with oil and wine, and who paid for him for the next day for the innkeeper to continue taking care of him. That was the guy who was his neighbor. And that came from the idea when the lawyer asked, well, what's the most important commandment of them all? And so I wanted to use that as fuel for this slideshow, is like, well, what does it mean to love anyone at all? Because I feel like so many times nowadays we let ourselves go with like, yeah, we didn't call them an idiot, they're just being stupid, or oh, they were being like super racist to us. That means like we can be like racist back, or like, oh, they were calling us an idiot, let's stomp them and call them an idiot too. It's like, no, because blessed are those who don't do that, who are merciful, who hunger for righteousness, and who mourn, right? Who are pure in heart. And so that's why I was going through this, and I was like, well, what does it mean to be pure? What does it mean to be good? And like, so I was kind of using this whole slideshow, which honestly was one chapter, to be like, well, this is what it is to be true to you, to be the salt, right? To be the light. So when you think to yourself, oh, I'm so Greg, or like, for example, for me, I talk so much, I'm so annoying, I'm so Anthony. I remind myself, God made me that way. If I'm not like this, then I'm not adding anything to his world, because nobody else can make me salty. Nobody else can make me who I am. And if I shut that down, if I'm like, oh, just stop talking, nobody cares, then I'll never find the true friends that love that taste, that like yes, like I love listening to this man, maybe not for hours on end, but I love listening to him and talking to him and being around him. And then at the bottom of that, so yeah, I can be true Anthony when I want to be, but I have to hide that away, right? It's like, no, like you can love yourself. You can share all of that because God didn't make you to be like a lamp that he puts under a bowl. He put it out there for everyone. So it's to support and to show love for yourself in here, right? So love yourself for being who you are and then share that with other people because God made you to shine. And then you're like, okay, well, but if I'm shining and doing all this, what if I hurt others? Well, yeah, it's not good for you to call someone else an idiot because how would you like to be called that? Jesus says in this line right here, calling somebody an idiot is equal to murder in a sense and answerable to court. And I like that because it holds you to a higher level. If you shall not murder is the base. Being a follower of Christ means that you dare not to call somebody an idiot. You consider their point of view. You think to yourself, why are they saying this? Maybe they're hurting me. Maybe they're trying to be annoying, but maybe they're suffering somewhere. Yeah, go ahead, by the way.
So before I ask, I just wanted to say that one, even though I'm not going to look them up, I think the citations are pretty cool. And two, I like the pictures quite a bit, especially where Jesus says, let it go. And that brings me to my point. The point is in this slide and in the next slide, are they designed, are they supposed to be like after songs? Was that intended or is that just a side effect? Like Let It Go is Frozen and you'd be like, what's love got to do?
Well, honestly, the reason I named it Let It Go was because I feel like there's so much that we like harbor in resentment. So like what I was doing is all of this is chapter 5. As you can see here, so this is 3 to 10. And then there's a couple of lines that Jesus talks about the Beatitudes, which is 10 to 13 or 11 to 13, and then or 11 to 12, and then 13 onwards, as you can see, all of this is the next section. So this is all chapter 5.
So you did not title them after songs intentionally?
Oh, songs like SONGS?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. Sorry, that's what you were going.
Cool.
I did.
So,
but
it has been 5 minutes for the question part, which I was hoping we could keep the questions around 5 minutes.
Yep, that's fine.
So I was just going to say, I think if anyone wants to stick around after Bible study, we can of course tell Anthony the things we like, maybe ask some more questions. But if everyone's okay, I would like to move on so we don't go too late in our Bible study. Is that good with everyone?
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Good with that.
Okay. Well. Yeah. Thank you for the presentation, Anthony, and welcome, Adam.
Thanks.
I am recording these, so I didn't want to diverge too much from Anthony's presentation while he was in it. So, now that Anthony's done, I really did like the presentation. I'd like to maybe talk about it some more. People are able to hang out afterwards. Maybe next time we chill and talk. But for now, I think it would be good to stick to the presentations and try to get through this. And then once we're done, we can all chill however long we want. Bryan, would you like to go next? Because I have no problem going next.
Yeah, actually, can I go last, dude? I'm starting to get butterflies in my stomach, man.
That's totally cool. And also, before we go on, there was a little bit of feedback from Greg's. I don't know if the TV was on or if Caroline was saying some things to you, but maybe if we could mute our mics during the presentations, and then of course afterwards for the questions, feel free to ask your question. We'll try to keep the questions to 5 minutes, so depending on how long our questions and answers are, maybe just 1 or 2 or 3 quick questions. So yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, you guys can see that.
Again?
Yes, I can. Sorry, Rose.
Yeah, we're good. We're good over here.
So is everyone set up and can see my stream?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay then. I will begin. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for making it happen once again, another Bible study. I'm very grateful that we are all able to be gathered here and that we can do this. And after seeing Anthony's and mine, I'm already thinking maybe next time we can do longer presentations if people are down for that. But let me hop right into it. My presentation was, funnily enough, also the Sermon on the Mount, and maybe perfectly what I'm focusing on is a very specific passage that Anthony kind of glossed over. So maybe that was meant to be. As you can see, the title is Just Pluck It Out and Chop It Off. So I know this is a lot of text, but this is the passage that I'm focusing on. So my entire presentation revolves around this. I went ahead and used the Dewey Reams Bible because I believe it is the most accurate Bible translation, even though it can be a little wordy sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and read through this so we all are on the same page on what we're discussing here. Matthew 5:27 through 30. You have heard that it was said to them of old, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you that whosoever shall look on a woman to lust after her hath already committed adultery with her in his heart. And if thy right eye scandalize thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee. For it is expedient for thee that one of thy members should perish, rather than that thy whole body be cast into hell. And if thy right hand scandalize thee, cut it off and cast it from thee. For it is expedient for thee that one of thy members should perish, rather than that thy whole body should be cast into hell. So, the dilemma. Even though we know the difference between right and wrong, our fallen nature, sinful urges, illogical minds, and selfish emotions often lead us away from what is good. So our consciences and the logic that God has programmed into our brains can show us right from wrong. We know deep down what is right from wrong, even sometimes subconsciously, but we don't follow through with it. We often sin. So how can we fix this? Clearly, Jesus wants us to chop off our hands, pluck out our eyes, and castrate ourselves, right? And then I have the Black Knight, who's just literally a stump, because that's our goal. That's what we want to be. The Catechism of the Catholic Church. I thought that was a good place to start to get some perspective on this. According to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, I'm reading from Article 5, the Fifth Commandment. It is not morally admissible to bring about the disabling mutilation or death of a human being, even in order to delay the death of other persons. And except when it's performed for strictly therapeutic medical reasons, directly intended amputations, mutilations, and sterilizations performed on innocent persons are against the moral law. So here we have the Catholic Church going against what Jesus just said. So it's kind of strange. Jesus just said if you're sinning because you're looking at bad things or you're using your hands in impure ways, you should just chop them off. But here we see the church is saying that you cannot do that. And the reason for that is that we do evil by mutilation. According to the Catechism, the end does not justify the means. There are concrete acts that it is always wrong to choose. One may not do evil so that good may result from it. And then we even have a Bible quote here from Romans 3:8. And why not do evil that good may come? As some people slanderously charge us with saying, their condemnation is just. So essentially what these three quotes are saying is that the ends do not justify the means. You cannot do evil because you think good things will come from it. And I think that's a very important pillar of Christianity. So even if mutilating ourselves could reduce our sins that we commit, that end does not justify the fact that self-harm is an evil. So the point is, Jesus is not speaking literally here. Context is important in the Bible. Jesus gives us a hint that he is not speaking literally in the first sentence of the sentences of the passage. But I say to you that whosoever shall look on a woman to lust after her hath already committed adultery with her in his heart. So I think this is a very important piece of context. And as a side note, Anthony just read the context of what I'm reading here. But this paragraph that I'm focusing on is kind of self-contained. So I think just reading this paragraph gives you a great idea of the context. So this is the first couple of sentences of the paragraph that I'm focusing on. And Jesus right here is telling us sin can be committed in the heart without ever doing anything physical. And as we know from reading the Bible and seeing how Jesus teaches and all the metaphors and analogies that he uses and the stories that he tells, Jesus uses a lot of literary devices. He often uses analogies and metaphors to allow our limited human brains to get a small glimpse into the world of the supernatural. And he does this by relating a spiritual concept that he wants us to understand to something in the natural world that the people around him understood well. So in Matthew 13, Jesus compares the kingdom of heaven to a dragnet. He says that the kingdom of heaven is like a net that catches all these fish, and then at the end of the day, it throws the bad fish away and keeps the good ones. He compares the kingdom of heaven to a mustard seed that starts off very small and insignificant, but it grows into to this beautiful kingdom. And then he compares it to a pearl of great price, where once this appraiser sees this amazing pearl, he sells everything he has to try to buy it. So these are just three examples of how Jesus uses analogies to help us to understand the spiritual. So whenever anyone says, well, that Bible verse doesn't mean that, I think it's important to say, well, what does it mean? If he's not being literal here, why did he say that? And the purpose for Jesus saying that is not because we should chop our body parts off. It's not because we should discard parts of ourselves. He's talking metaphorically about near occasions of sin, such as bad people, bad places, and bad things. He's telling us if something causes us to sin, we need to cut it out of our lives, even if it is something we hold so dear as an eye or a hand, not a literal eye or a hand. And he's trying to prepare us to be ready and willing to make these difficult sacrifices, because sometimes it will feel like something we have to give up as precious as an eye or a hand. And here at the bottom I have, if God asked you to pluck out an eye or chop off a hand, could you do it? So I think this is a nice thought experiment to imagine that you 100% know it's God speaking to you, and you 100% know he's asking you to pluck out an eye or chop off a hand. Now, God is not telling us to do this, but we should be willing to make these difficult sacrifices. And over here we have Abraham sacrificing his only son. Now, of course, God didn't actually want him to kill his son, but I think the lesson in that story of the Old Testament and the lesson that we have here is that when God wants us to do something, we need to be ready to do it, even if it's something that we hold very dearly. And another important point is that Jesus is speaking hypothetically. The word if is a critical keyword in these passages. If thy right eye scandalize thee, if thy right hand scandalize thee. And I went ahead and looked up the definition of scandalize, which means to bring into reproach. And I think within the context of the Bible and what we're talking about here, basically means to bring into sin. If thy right hand makes you sin, if your right eye makes you sin. And the truth is that sin does not come from our eyes or our hands. The source of sin is the soul. And even if we were a limbless, castrated stump, we could still sin using our hearts and minds. We could still lie there helpless, cursing God and being angry. There's no easy answer or solution. Being a good Christian isn't about making a one-time change or a one-time decision. It's a slow process of repeated failure and self-improvement. And one thing that I like to consider right here is the difference between our lives from the angels. The angels did have to make one difficult decision, whether to serve God or to serve themselves. And when you look at things objectively, it's really not a difficult decision. The choice is obvious. But all created beings have their own will, especially intelligent beings. They have their own will that they have to get out of the way to serve the will of their creator, to live for a greater purpose. And so the angels, yes, they can make that one-time decision, I am following God, and then they are forever saved. They are forever a good angel. But of course, a lot of them made that bad decision, and they are forever demons now. For us, it's not the same way. We don't get to just do one thing and then think, okay, I'm saved now. We have to live through our entire lives, and our salvation is not guaranteed until the end of our lives, and then it's going to be determined. And another big reason that Jesus talks about lust in such a shocking way so that we are appalled and repelled from this vice. And St. Alphonsus Liguori, he is my confirmation saint, so he's one of my patron saints. This is what he writes on lust. This treacherous vice begins in pleasure but ends in an abyss of bitterness and remorse. There is nothing into which man is more easily drawn, but nothing from which he is with more difficulty freed. For this reason it is justly compared to a fisherman's net, which the fish easily enter, but from which they rarely escape. So, in summary, by reading into the context of the Bible, understanding Jesus' way of teaching, and studying the dogmas of his church, we know Jesus did not want his followers to literally mutilate their bodies. Jesus wants us to understand that our bodies are not to blame for our sins. We are. And this is a really core point. I think it's easy for us humans to look for excuses and say, well, it's because of the internet, or it's because of my phone, or it's because of my hand, or it's because of whatever body part or whatever person or thing you want to blame. But the truth is that we are to blame. At our core, we are flawed human beings. We choose to sin. And I think that's a huge part of why Jesus talks about it in this way. He wants us to know we are choosing to sin. It's not because of any kind of detail that we look for excuses to blame. Jesus speaks metaphorically to prepare us, because some of the things we'll have to do in our lives, we'll have to do them for God, and we'll have to make huge sacrifices, and sometimes those things that we're sacrificing will feel as dear to us as our own body. And Jesus wants us to recognize the seriousness of sin, specifically those of lust and impurity, in this passage. And so here's my last slide. Is this the craziest New Testament Bible passage? Maybe not. I kind of like to confront the really crazy sounding Bible passages head on, and that's why I chose this one, because for a while I've kind of struggled with this idea that Jesus says you should just chop off your hand, because it's a very easy sin to struggle with, especially as a young man. And I've often wondered, like, is this actually something that I should do? Like, there's no way, right? And so in doing this presentation, I talked to a Bible scholar by the name of Jerry Matitix. He gave me some clarity and told me that, of course, no, this is not a literal command Jesus is giving. You can look up the Catechism of the Church, and he gave me all these resources that I have included in this presentation. But the point of Jesus telling you this is that he wants you to cut things out of your life that pull you away from God, such as lust and near occasions of sin. The Bible is a book that has layers and layers of depth. So sometimes you can't just read things at face value. Sometimes things sound crazy when you first read them. Sometimes Bible passages make you upset or angry. But there's usually more to these crazy sounding Bible passages than meets the eye. And sometimes we just aren't learned enough to correctly interpret. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what I was just saying. Sometimes we aren't learned enough to correctly interpret and understand what the Bible is trying to convey without some serious help or consideration. So sometimes you can get help from someone who understands the Bible, a Bible scholar. Sometimes you just need to think very carefully and pray about these passages. And then at other times, we just aren't ready to accept the truths of the Bible. So the point that I'm trying to convey is to, like I said, cut those things out of your life that take you away from God, and open your hearts and your minds to the laws of God, the story of Jesus, and the wisdom of the Holy Ghost. Thank you. Thank you. No applause, just throw money.
Oh, I think we could, I guess, through Venmo. I do have a question.
Sure.
I want to start that. Yeah, click on that one. Go ahead and start there on that
From the
slide.
beginning?
Yeah, okay, now go to and then there's one slide in particular I wanted to, question, not to have, okay, and then go to the next one. Okay, and then go to the next one, but that is the slide I want to talk about. And go to the next one. Yeah. Wait, no, go back one. I don't know if you skipped one. Sorry. No, okay. Go next one. One more. Okay, and then go back. Okay, so back to that original slide. So what? One more. Sorry, like the original, the catechism one. No. Yes. Okay. So I just thought that so in there, so right, directly intended amputations, mutilations, sterilization performed on innocent persons are against the moral law. So my question was, wouldn't it be considered guilty, for example, for you to, let's say you laid hands on a woman and she was like, okay, like you can do this, but she was married, for example, and so you are committing adultery, so you are guilty of adultery. Would you not consider an amputation then a just punishment because it is no longer on an innocent person? That's my question.
Sure. So I think that gets into the realm of laws and society making judgments. I do not think that mutilation is something that anyone should do to themselves, but I have heard of societies where someone is like, if someone was raping people, then they were castrated. And I'm not going to speak to that exactly. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe that's what this is referring to. That if a society thinks it can, like, if someone does horrible evils and the society sees a way to prevent or drastically reduce that from happening without killing the person, then perhaps that is permitted by the moral law. But as far as doing it to yourself, I believe that these catechism passages forbid that kind of thing.
Well, that kind of makes me think of like war in the sense like if somebody's doing something evil, like not there aren't many just wars, but there have been just wars, and in just wars, you justly mutilate somebody.
You mean just like from fighting? And
Exactly. Like in the Crusades, you'd be chopping someone's limb right off, and that maybe not all of them. I'm not saying war is a good thing, but I believe there have been at least just battles, and in the just battles, people were mutilated.
right.
Yeah. So that was the only question, is because I feel like in this, and I like the presentation. Let me start there. Not even start as in I'm going anywhere, but like I want to share that I really enjoyed your presentation. I feel like it was very guided, and I liked how a lot of the words were on the slide. So as you were talking, I could read it and follow what you were saying and be like, oh, that was really nice. So yeah, so good presentation.
Thank you very much. Did anyone else have a question before we move on?
Nope.
What about circumcision?
What?
I said, what about circumcision?
Well, this was not really about circumcision, but if you are asking, I do not believe the church likes circumcision anymore. I think that was something from the old covenant, so um, that was really not a part of my topic, so I haven't done a lot of research on it, so maybe I shouldn't speak on it, but I do believe that the church would classify that as a form of mutilation, so I don't think that that's something that is
Yeah, we got
highly,
good
is
soap now.
highly
We ain't got to worry about
encouraged
all
right
that.
now. Yeah.
To be just to like give a, or not just to, but to give a like a good reason for it, I guess. And I'm not saying that it is a good or bad thing to do, but right here in the catechism, right, they're saying except when performed for strictly therapeutic medical reasons, you could consider originally giving a castration as a medical thing. So it's not like you're
You mean
mutilating somebody.
circumcision?
Yes, you
Okay.
could consider a circumcision a
I mean, that's how
medical,
it
like
started,
that.
Yeah,
right?
I
Just
I
because they would
think
get infected real
yeah, I
quick.
think it was like in the olden days. I think it was something for the health of the person, but I
Yeah.
think that it is actually relatively dangerous, and it is obviously painful and bloody. And I mean, I'm not afraid to say I'm circumcised, so of course I don't have anything against someone who's circumcised, but um, I probably would not want to circumcise my children because I just don't think it's necessary now, and I do think it could be classified as a form of mutilation.
Okay.
That
But
was the only
yes,
question.
thank you
Yeah,
everyone.
we got Johnson and Johnson now, man. They're keeping our things clean now.
And we're going a bit longer than Well, really,
All good.
it's fine. If Brian, you can take as long as you want. Like you could take 15 minutes and then another 5 for questions, and we'll actually be right about an hour because we started 10 minutes late anyways.
Mine, I don't think it's gonna be too long anyway.
No, Brian, go for it. Let's hear it out.
Lay it all out there,
So I
bro.
didn't make a PowerPoint because I'm not a fan.
Oh,
I did what's it called? I'm doing mine TED Talk style.
all right.
Okay.
So welcome to my TED Talk.
Do you have a
What are you
webcam?
I am actually about to switch over to my phone just so I can stream my face.
It's only if you want to. I was just asking.
No, I was like already gonna do that. Let's see. No, I think I do this. Is this thing working?
Yep.
Yes, it is.
I also
Hottie.
do it. Hey man, paycheck.
What a hottie. Look at that silver drip.
Oh, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I like the hair too. I actually just got a haircut almost exactly like that, but I'm gonna mute my mic and let you go now.
Yes, I need to get it.
All right. So before I start, I am low key embarrassed right now. So I'm This is actually, I don't know how it turned out this way, but it ended up becoming almost like a therapy for myself. And it is deeply personal. So if I start crying, hey, don't. It's raining. You know what I mean? There's something in my eye. Okay. Welcome to my TED Talk. I'm Bryan Gill. Okay. Jesus. Who even is Jesus? What were his responsibilities? What were his intentions? Was Jesus just a pre-programmed entity, or was he just a normal guy with free will? Was Jesus under the impression that what he had to do was something that had to be done because it was prophecy? Was he just trying to live in the footsteps of his father? Was he trying to impress his father? What exactly was Jesus trying to do? I'm not too sure, honestly. The way I view Jesus is if I could be Jesus, or you could be Jesus. Any of us could be Jesus. Jesus just was a human who just happened to have the responsibility of saving all of humanity, which kind of, I don't really know how to explain it, but here, let me get my notes. I think what makes the story of Jesus so special is that he was just a normal guy. I think if he wanted to, he wouldn't sacrifice himself, but he did it anyway. But he did it anyway, to save humanity, not just from the devil, but from themselves. In Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 28, he says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you." Which leads me to my main point. Jesus was a crazy guy. In a good way, by the way. But anyway, he was saying, it's the power of forgiveness that kind of speaks to me a good more than really anything else, because I've had to forgive a handful of people for a lot of different things. And it's hard because forgiveness it's pretty wild. It's like killing two birds with one stone. You lift the weight off your oppressors for any guilt that they might harbor toward you, and you cleanse yourself from the anger and stress that you hold for holding the anger in your heart and soul. Which is it's a tough concept to grasp, forgiveness. Because there's based on what is done to you, your option to said things are to react to what is happening. So for example, I'll use myself as an example, and this is where it gets kind of weird. But the earliest memory I have of just like my life, or really it's my father, was in like the first, second-ish grade. Really, it was like more kindergarten-ish. My father had he had abandoned me and my sisters and my mother. He had left without saying anything and had started a family in Miami, Florida. And then we moved with my mother's sister. So I hated him for a while. It wasn't until my dad had gotten custody of us when I was in like the second or third grade, and I hadn't spoken to him since. I hated him. And the only reason why we moved back in with him was because my mother had went to jail for acts of fraud. She was making fraudulent checks. Point is, I hated this man. I don't think it was until like the sixth grade until where I finally came up to where I had forgave him for what he had done. And soon after that, maybe around ninth grade, same thing happened. Was he actually had abandoned us again. He had left and fled to Miami, left me and my sisters alone in a house. And he decided that it'd be a good idea to traffic cocaine. Not funny, but I don't know why I left. So point being, I know I'm getting a little personal here, but point is, I think, okay, this is actually the point. Hold on. Even as Jesus, like if you put it into perspective, even though like, saying that out loud sounds pretty awful, but when you put it into perspective, even as Jesus was being brutally just like humiliated, tortured, murdered, like on the cross, like on his last breath, he had prayed to his Father and had asked them to forgive those who were doing this to him. He said, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And I think forgiveness is a powerful thing, because I've known just from, just self-experience, not even just with like my my father, but just in general, like with friends. And there's always like a lot of hate, and like I think like anger and just like resentment just can harbor in your soul and in your mind and just turn you into a really nasty, ugly person. And the best way, I think, to get away from that is through forgiveness. To really, like, forgiveness is just it's almost like a fire extinguisher for the burning anger in your soul. And it not only does it help you, but on the flip side, it does help the other person, because even though your oppressors are doing these nasty things to you, I do think that there's some guilt that they feel, and in the back of their mind they're thinking, oh man, like this is terrible, like can't believe I did that, like I'm such a piece of shit. And when you forgive them, it not only does it help you, but it helps them. And I think that's that's a good middle ground. That's pretty good. Leads me to my next thing. And all things, I think, like, I know this is a little cheesy, a lot of people say this, I think all things are possible, like, through Christ. And one thing that gives me assurance, that's actually on Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 through 8, is when you're lost and you don't know what to do, and when you're thinking of forgiveness or just things of that nature, or stress, depression, I always think of, again, Matthew chapter 7 through 8. Under the heading, Ask, Seek, Knock. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door, it will be opened. Point is, a lot of things can be very difficult in this life when it comes to sin, forgiving the people that have wronged you, and just in general, lust, to just any number of things are very difficult. But the good news is that you don't have to do this alone. Not only well, your friends support you, and I'll support you. But more importantly, I think God will support you, and through acts of prayer and strengthening your relationship with Christ, I think it, that leads to a happy ending, and that is my TED talk. It was a little clunky, but I am a little nervous. But that is it. That's my TED talk.
Well done.
Yay, thank you, Bryan.
He's gone. Hold on. We gotta get him back. Oh, there you go. I was like, he left for our applause.
Yeah, there's the mic drop.
Yeah.
Grabs the mic.
So, I'm sorry, my
I
phone
had to
did
switch.
die mid-presentation. I had to run grab a charger and come back.
You're good.
I was gonna say,
No
all
deal.
good.
Hey, Mike's got it recorded, man. He's got you.
I
I was
do.
gonna say, share my screen. I felt that was nice as we're in the realm of questions and stuff like that. So it was,
Yeah, so maybe we
liked
could
it.
do like a question or two for Bryan, and then we could just open up to whatever we'd like to talk about. Did anyone have a question or a comment for Bryan's presentation?
Kind of hard. I didn't really lay out any facts, honestly. It's not
Well,
like
I actually wanted to say something. What you were saying reminded me of two things. The first is that Jesus said to love your enemies, which was a radical idea at the time. People have never
right.
heard something like that before, and I think that really goes along with what you were saying about forgiveness. And
Right.
the other thing that came to my mind that I learned from Bible study, and I'm very grateful to have learned it, as you were talking about the torture and the humiliation and death of our Lord, I couldn't help but think about what it means to be crucified and how horrible of a death it is. They don't just crucify you to kill you. They crucified people because after generations of studying and experimentation, they found that it was the most painful way that they could find to kill somebody. Like as we learned, you would hang on the cross, and the pain on your hands would be so unbearable that you would actually push up with your legs to try to ease some of that horrifying pain. And then eventually, when they wanted you to just die, they would break your legs. So yeah, like you said, it was a horrifying torture. It's a horrifying way for any person to die, and Jesus bared all of that willingly for us, and he didn't harbor resentment towards the people who did it. So not really questions, but just two things that your presentation made me think of.
Yeah, man. That really puts a lot of things into perspective for me, because like what I was thinking, like what I said in the beginning was like I do think that Jesus was just like a guy. Like obviously, he's like the son of God, but I think he just happened to be the son of God. Does that make any sense? Like
Nice.
like I was saying, like I think I could be Jesus, or you could be, like anybody could have been Jesus. Like he was just a guy who was the son of God, and then he had to live his life like accordingly. But I don't think he had to do that. Like for some reason in my mind, I don't necessarily think Jesus had to do any of that. Obviously, God was like, hey man, maybe you probably should, but I'm not sure if it was like he I don't think he was like an AI robot pre-programmed to do all those things. I think somehow through his life he had worked himself up to be the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, even like there's a moment before he had died. Maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but he was speaking like, "Hey, is there any other way? Like, do I have to do it this way?" Like, toward the end, I think he was like, slightly like worried about it.
Yeah, he said something like, Father, if there's any way, please take this cup from me and let it be passed on to somebody else. But if it is, but in the end, I want your will to be done. So yeah, I think you're hitting on a very important point of Jesus in that he is just like us. God made himself into a human, and that is the second person of the Trinity, Jesus, and he can relate to us. He felt our emotions. He felt what it's like to exist as a physical creature in this world, as a human being in this world. So yeah, there's a lot of inspiration that can come from that, knowing that God experienced what we experience living in this world. And I think you're right. He was just like us. He was fully human, but he was also, of course, fully God.
I like your. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
All I
No,
was gonna
go
say
for
is
it.
I was laughing during both your guys' presentations, like in a good way, and I know my mic was muted, so maybe there was a couple times you guys were laughing and there was silence. It was like, yeah, that's kind of awkward. But you guys both did great, and I thought your presentations were
Yeah.
good.
I also laughed. I was like kind of glad I had muted because I was just like just some of the stuff you said. I was just like, well, in all presentations. So yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, when
Laughed
Mike
very
went
much.
on the one about layers, I just heard Shrek in my head just talking about onions.
The Bible is like
Thankfully,
an onion.
Thankfully, I was not that deep into the Shrek lore. Though, fun fact, I did, and it's kind of off, I did see that there's a new Puss in Boots coming out. I never saw the first one, but the second one looks really good. And so I just thought of that, and I was like, wow, like, just talking about Shrek, and here's like the side character from the second one who's like getting his own movie now.
Yeah, Greg was just telling me about that too. The new movie coming out.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
did anyone have any other comments or questions for any of the presentations we heard tonight?
I mean, I did for Bryan's, and it was that I feel like, forgiveness is a very difficult thing. I've talked a lot with my friends about it throughout all the time, and I feel like, it's very difficult because it's not like usually, like, for example, like with me and my mom, like it's very difficult to like forgive someone when they constantly do the same thing over and over, and you're just like, can you please like stop doing this thing? And they're just like, what? And I don't want this. They're just like on another plane from you. Like you're like, I'm trying to like explain my situation, but what you feel like is me nagging is me like sharing like this really sucks when you do this, or like it really upsets me when you do this. And so many times I look to Jesus, and as you're saying, like he suffered so much, and I think kind of along the same lines. I liked how your presentation was like, he was a guy, and yes, he became the ultimate sacrifice. And I think, welcome back, Greg. And I think that with your presentation, I like to think that he grew into that. Like he was tempted so many times, like in the desert, like Lent, for example. He was tested for 40 days. I feel like he became that. Not only being the Son of God, he showed through all of his life as a human how to be the best human. He wasn't like, oh, I can sin every now and then, but I'm the Son of God, so that makes it okay. He was like, no, I'm gonna like be the Son of God by the things I do, so that you can see all the things I'm doing, give glory to the one who sent me. So I really like that, and I feel like in my life, with forgiveness as the like central theme, I really liked your presentation because very much so it is usually family. I'll throw that out there with me that have like constantly like hurt me, or like want to be like, yeah, if you do this one thing, like I don't want to like you anymore, and like hurt you in such like a deep way. And I find myself constantly up until this day and going on, I believe, asking myself like, yes, like I do want to forgive them, but how do I do that when like they're hurting me consistently, and I want to share the way that we can make this not painful and make this like better. And I feel like that is, as Mike said, like an evolutionary process, not something that's like, oh, I'm gonna forgive her for like being really mean to me this once. It's like she's gonna do it again and again and again. But I feel like what's opened up a pathway for forgiveness is that every time I do forgive her and I let it go, but that doesn't mean I forget it. I let it go, and I'm like, I'm not going to persecute you for this. I'm not going to hold this against you. But I do want to recognize what is leading us, like what's leading me to be angry, to be upset, or to be hurt by the things you say, so that with that awareness, you can change that about the things that you do, or choose not to. And that is something that I can see and act and believe in and be like, okay, so what do I need to do to be able to live my life as a good person? And I think that paralleling a little bit with mine is also to like be what is good, and through your forgiving somebody and like showing them like I do want to forgive you and I do want to love you, they recognize that, and through that they're like, oh, like I kind of want to do that too. So that's why I like your presentation lines, because I feel like one of the hardest things ever is like when somebody hurts you really really bad and you're like I don't want to talk to them ever again. But then like I think about Matt honestly, and I'm just like, I really from the core of who I was hated that guy, but now I've come to think of him as like a brother. Like I love him, and like I feel like it's because of Mike, and really because of the idea of like not wanting to like hate somebody. And like AJ, for example, like I would be okay if like he joined a call and we were talking, because yes, I am human, I have emotions, but I feel like through Jesus, I've learned that forgiveness is OP. And like,
Whoops.
I really
Well,
your presentation focused.
yeah, and I like what Anthony said. It's kind of funny because all of our presentations kind of do seem linked, especially your two. But Anthony said something along the lines of the way that I can forgive others, or the reason that I do, is because God did it first. Jesus did it first, and so I follow his lead. And I especially thought about that while talking about Bryan's presentation when Anthony was saying when people hurt you over and over and over again, and you've already, like, they already know it's something that bothers you. You already told them that it bothers you. That's exactly how it is with God. Like, we know that we do things that are wrong, and maybe that ties my presentation into a little bit. We know that we do things that are wrong. We feel that they're wrong. Our conscience tells us that they're wrong. The Bible tells us that they're wrong, and we continue to do them. We continue to hurt God repeatedly, and yet he continues to forgive us. And so I think you're right. We can draw inspiration from that. It's much easier to forgive knowing that we have an almighty, all good God above forgiving us.
Okay.
Word.
Good word.
It's all a matter of perspective, man. It really is.
Yeah.
It does seem like we've kind of reached our conclusion here, in a way, in a good way. And of course, like, if anybody wants my PowerPoint, I can easily export it. It's 8 slides or something. But
Well, I thought my phone was charged enough, and it obviously wasn't.
Well, I think we are finishing up. We went 15 minutes late, but we also started about 10 minutes late, so we really only went about 5 minutes over. Was there anything else anyone wanted to address before we formally close this out?
okay.
Okay.
Nah, bruh.
Let's
No, I'm good.
close it out with a prayer. Would anyone like to lead? All right, I'll lead the prayer.
Bryan looks like he wants to leave, though.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Dear God, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, thank you for bringing us together and allowing us to share our interpretations of your holy word. Thank you for guiding us and helping us to find the truth hidden within the pages of the Bible. And thank you for allowing your word to create a sense of community between us. And hopefully we will continue to have productive Bible studies where we can come closer to each other and closer to you, O God. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day
our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
What do you want to ask, Mike?